got there, we turned on our lights and sirens and made a big deal. So if anybody saw our lights over there and were concerned that something major was happening, it was just the shop of the cop. So we had a good time. We helped kids pick out presents for their, not just for themselves, but family members. And Norco generously donated $100 per kid for the presents. And after they were done, we took them in the back room and helped wrap their presents for them and give them some snacks. Then we took them back to the station, and their parents came and picked them up. So it was a great event. We enjoyed it, and we're doing it next year also. We do have several holiday enforcement operations coming up. On December 30th, we do have our first grant-funded DUI checkpoint at an undisclosed location within the city. I do know where the location is, so please don't ask, because I'm not going to tell you. It's secret. We do have 3 more to complete in 2018. New Year's Eve, deputies from the Norco Sheriff's Office, along with code enforcement and animal control, will be patrolling the city streets looking for people lighting up fireworks. And this will be a zero tolerance, so everyone we locate lighting off fireworks will get a citation. And the fine's pretty hefty, from $1,000 to $2,000, depending on what type of fireworks they're lighting off. And the Sheriff's Department, along with the City Council, city staff, and the Fire Department, have posted educational information on various social media platforms to educate the citizens prior to our enforcement to hopefully reduce the amount of fireworks being lit in the city. And citizens are encouraged to call the Sheriff's Department if they see anyone lighting on fireworks. And that's about it. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Bill. Scott, I know we're due for some high winds, so you have any wisdom on the fire?
There's only one large fire still burning in Southern California, and it's the fire that's in Ventura, the Thomas fire. The winds are supposed to surface again this evening into tomorrow, and then again on Saturday, I believe it is. And this condition is expected to be with us for the entire winter. So we just urge everyone to be very diligent in their fire safety. The Thomas fire last week tragically cost the life of Cal Fire engineer Corey Iverson. His services will be held Saturday in San Diego. It touched some of our own firefighters here in Norco that formerly worked with Corey. And there's 4 of them that are currently off duty, supporting the family and meeting their needs for the funeral. And again, I just urge everyone to be extra diligent over the next few weeks while it remains hot and dry, and be extra cautious.
Thank you, Scott. I know as partners here in the city, all of us here in the city, surely mourn for the loss of that firefighter, and hope for the best for his family. Thank you. All right. Going out, next item on the thing, the City Council consent calendars. Do I have anybody who wants to pull anything?
F.
Pulling F. Seeing no other poll, do I have any?
Motion to approve the rest.
Motion to approve the rest? Second by Greg.
Yes, Mayor, I have a motion from Councilmember Bash and a second from Councilmember Newton to approve the remaining items on the consent calendar. If you could please vote. That item passes unanimously.
Kevin, pull it.
No, Greg.
All three.
Thank you. Steve, I don't have any issue with the extension of the tentative track map. I'm just curious to the backstory or the reasonings for this request. Are you in a position to elaborate a little bit on that?
Excuse me. The state law provides for 3 one-year extensions of maps that are due to expire. When they're approved, a tentative map, the owner has 2 years within which they can record the map, make a final map, and then the lots actually become legal lots. If they're not able to do that, then they can request 3 one-year extensions, and this is the first one-year extension request for this. We did meet with the applicant probably about a month ago, and he indicated that the timing for the marketing of the lots, the market conditions weren't exactly where they needed to be for the price range that he'd have to get to make it a successful map. But he feels that 2018 will be the year that he can do that.
That's all I had with that.
Any other comments from council?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Steve as well. When I was reviewing what we had approved in February, I had a question on when would we be able to revisit conditions? Does that come back for the project? Just because I've learned a few things since I've been on council when we voted on this, and I feel like maybe we can make a few changes, but I don't know when the appropriate time for making changes to conditions would be for this project.
Well, if you would want to add some conditions to the map, then you couldn't make it, you can do that, but you would have to introduce those conditions at the next meeting.
Okay.
So what the options you have are to approve the extension, to approve it with conditions, or to deny the extension. So if you want to add conditions, then we'd have to set it for the next meeting.
I think I just need clarification on conditions,
Sure.
if that makes sense. Things, like fencing and wall measurements and things like that, based on projects that we've been working to complete. So specifically, condition 45 and 55.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's something that can just be discussed with the applicant, or if those are set in stone, or if we'll see them again before the project moves forward.
Now, this would be your time, so you can change them tonight if you want, unless the city attorney says no. You can change them tonight if you want, and then the map would be extended 1 year with the changes.
Okay. So for clarification for those of you in the audience, the things that I've learned have come from our work on the Norco Village project. And so, for example, condition 45 talks about construction activity and then prior written approval from the city engineer. So I just needed to know, or designee, because I know with the village project, Andy has had to take care of some of the approvals of the times for additional construction and things like that. And then the second one was condition number 55 says the applicant shall provide a screen wall on the north property line of the project site. And walls and screening is a tremendous headache with the Norco Village project, so I want to make sure that there's clarification of what exactly a screen wall is and what our measurements are and where they're measured from and all of those types of things, so we try and alleviate some headaches for ourselves down the road.
Well, in condition number 45, I'll read it. No construction activity work shall be permitted after 6 p.m. or dusk or before 7 a.m. on Saturdays, Sundays, or holidays without prior written approval from the city engineer, which is historically how that condition read, and now we've changed it since then to the planning director to take that burden on.
Okay.
Or designate, we could say.
Or yeah, and I'm fine with or designee. I just feel like Andy's had to handle a lot of the Norco Village stuff. So I didn't know it was the city engineer until I read this one. So.
Anyone?
Well, at number 55, I want to know what a
Yeah.
screen wall is.
Yeah, well, in regards to the screen wall, the requirement is that it's 8 feet from the grade of the adjacent property. But it is residential, so, it's not like Norco Village Center where you have commercial and residential. But that typically would be the condition, 8 feet from the grade of the adjacent property.
And that's written somewhere?
I said 8, I'm sorry, 6, I said 8. It's 6
Okay.
feet from the grade, yes, it's in the code.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Steve?
Yeah, because drawing off what she said, I spent a lot of time out there myself, and part of the problem is when they graded, there's a slope, and so they measured from the bottom of the slope where the original property was, because they had the existing block wall. And then what they did was they built it up so that it's now, even though it's Corona residence primarily, the issue, she raises a very good point. So can they do that again with this property, even though it's residential, or will they have to keep it the current grade and match the grade? And just so we're clear, the developers worked really hard to alleviate this problem, but essentially if you raise the ground, I don't know, 4 feet?
Yeah.
So,
I was just speaking with the Public Works Director, and this property is actually going to go up in relation to the properties behind it. So instead of having the wall at the grade of the adjacent property, it would be at the top of slope of this property.
so how high is slope? So the wall could be on top of a 10-foot slope and a 6-foot wall, so 16 feet high.
Mhm.
What Kevin then just describes is the same situation we had with that Lewis property on Valley View and Fifth, that the residents on Fifth Street then would have been faced with a manufactured slope with a wall on top, which took out, you know, their view of the mountains, et cetera, and we've had that discussion. Be careful.
We could certainly change the block wall to something different since this property's going to be higher. And
I guess what I'm, if I may, past the map, they're still going to have to bring back engineered drawings, architectural drawings. They're going to have to be reviewed to meet certain landscape requirements,
yeah,
correct? And so all those reviews come in the future. And I think that at that time is when we look at the particulars of the screen wall. And, but to Robin's comment that I think we should this is a very generic condition, and that I think our policy on that should be that any walls or screening should be from finished surface, and finished surface should be determined beforehand so that we don't run into the situation that we did at the Lewis Center that Kevin just described.
Because you could have something where you raise it 10 feet, you raise your wall 6 feet, and then you put a 2-story building and you're literally looking straight down into someone's. I'm concerned about that.
Kevin, any more? Greg, any more? Rob? City Attorney, this is an interesting situation. We can either approve this as the extension, or we can continue it, and because the applicant's not here, so, or we can just go through it.
Steve, when does the map expire? Is there a drop dead?
it expires in February. I don't
Okay.
know the exact
So,
date.
I mean, the way this worked in the past and probably works better is based upon these comments, Steve, Public Works, sit down with the developer between now and the next meeting and try and resolve the issues that you raised, and then come back at that meeting. And so what I'm suggesting is continuing the approval of this map until those can be addressed.
And that way the applicant.
Yeah.
And with that, I don't see meeting with staff would do the developer any good, because he's not at that point with his drawings.
Yes,
My recommendation would be to go ahead and approve the extension of the map, and knowing that all those engineered drawings are going to have to come to staff at a certain point.
Okay.
Well, is there anything in the code though which allows staff to address the issues which you raised.
You're the attorney.
No.
Sure, there is. I don't know.
Yeah, but, I mean, I'm not the engineer, so I don't.
Right.
I think with the changes to the conditions, the way they've been stated, and the applicant's not gonna have a problem with those. We could move forward with the changes tonight.
With, again, assuming that the issues that have been raised at this end of the table can be addressed through some other means other than, because if it's just engineering considerations, it is what it is, and I mean, the type of wall doesn't necessarily come back to you. And if it's gonna, and if the slope is gonna be 10 feet, the slope's gonna be 10 feet, and if there's a wall required on top of it, that's what staff's gonna do, and you can talk about what works for the developer, but it's still gonna be 10 feet with a 6-foot wall.
I just don't think you would know that at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't, well, will the developer, I mean,
So,
what's gonna make what will determine the height of the increased slope?
180% grading, which may not occur for a while.
Steve, is there somewhere along this process that we can revisit the conditions without changing them tonight? That's all I'm asking, is I don't want this to be set in stone and us to be held to this 2 or 3
Literally,
years
the
down the
answer
road.
is that the only opportunity you have is kind of quid pro quo for extending the map. Otherwise, the conditions are the conditions, and he has a vested right to build to those conditions.
I'd like to make a motion to continue this.
And at least maybe you can address with more specific language the issues.
And invite the property owner to talk to and discuss, and maybe have a pre-meeting.
we have a motion and a second to continue it.
I'm sorry, what was the second? Who was the second?
I don't have a second. Kevin made a motion
I'll second it.
and Newton second for the continuing.
To continue, okay, please vote.
You gotta take your card up.
Motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to 4 public comments. This is when persons can speak on things that are not on the agenda. And it's 3 minutes. You have cards here?
Yes, Mayor. Larry Eckhoff?
Evening, Larry.
Discussion.
Mayor, council, staff.
Aye.
Mike. Right, you got it? Okay, thank you. I'm going to start again. Mayor, council, staff, and people behind me. Monday is Christmas. And I know everybody in this room is having that one person that they don't know what to get them for a gift. I'm going to solve that problem right here and right now. Number 1, you can buy a brick to put in the Circle of Honor at the Ingalls Memorial for a veteran or a active duty member. That's one. Number 2, you can get a gift certificate if you don't have the information. They can buy their own brick when they can supply the information. Number 3, and I just got this and it just blew me away. It was my birthday, and I got a card with a check made out for a donation to the Veterans Memorial. I don't need anything, and I'm sure a lot of people, I don't need stuff. That just blew me away. So what I'm suggesting is you've got that person you don't want to get them a gift of a donation to the Veterans Memorial. Just write on the Christmas card, I'm making a gift in your name for the Veterans Memorial. That's 3. So I've solved everybody so they can concentrate on what they're doing tonight. A couple other things. First of all, the Veterans Memorial is open from 10 a.m. till dusk. Now, I've checked it, I've gone up there when the winds were blowing, it was raining, they opened the gates for the people to go up there, and people go up there, I see little flags on there, they go up there. But if you go up there and the gate is not open, Berwin Hanna will drive up there, he will open the gate, and he will buy you lunch for your trouble. So, isn't that right, Berwin? You do that, right? Or drive a bus up there, one of the two.
Only one, because I only got one gift certificate.
Okay, all right, okay. Merry Christmas to everybody, and can I get a hoorah? Hoorah! I got more, okay.
Say goodbye, man. Good job.
Pat Overstreet.
Pat?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I just want to share with you a wonderful Christmas gift I received. Driving out the back way of Norco to La Sierra through North, it's been landscaped and it looks as though you've chosen Canary Island pines for both sides of the streets. I can't tell you how happy I am. It was a great Christmas gift. Thank you, whoever's responsible. Every time I think about and I've mentioned it so many times at this dais, that the Canary Island pines on the strips on the way, Haruba, on the way to the Ontario Airport are just magnificent. I'm not going to be here when it happens because I'm just really getting old, but that entryway is going to be magnificent. In 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, what a great entrance to that part of town. And I encourage us to put more Canary Island pines, all the places we've had to pull out the pepper trees. But just thank you so much. I was just overjoyed. A great Christmas present. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Chad, and your staff for doing that.
Jim Kohler.
Just so you know, Mr. Mayor, real quick, unfortunately, we already had that route vandalized. As of yesterday, somebody stole one of our new stop signs that we placed there, so.
There's a Grinch. Mr. Holden.
Well, I'll get past that. I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I live in a city where I can say that. And thank you for the work you've all done, staff and council members and officer, for all the work you've done in the last year. And I also want to mention that the Boy Scouts will be selling mistletoe. They have permission of Tractor Supply, so if you support them, all the money that they get will go in their own personal scout account. Thank you.
When will they be there?
They're in school now, so we really don't have a schedule, but probably this weekend we'll be able to see them there. They won't be at Stater Brothers because they don't want to have conflict with the Salvation Army.
Thank you, Jim.
Mayor, that concludes public comments.
Closing public comments. Right now to item number 5A, public hearing regarding potential district boundaries relating to the transition from at-large and district-based council member elections. City Attorney?
City, whether me or Andy, but this is the second hearing. The purpose is simply to receive any additional input which members of the public might have based upon the input received prior meeting and tonight, and input received directly to the consultant at the next public hearing. There will be potential matters.
Andy, did you need to add to that?
No, rather I would have the city clerk speak to some of the resources that we have available through the city website to help folks provide input to this process.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, just this week we've updated the city website with information regarding district-based elections. If you subscribe to city email alerts, you would have received this flyer yesterday. And this just provides a brief summary of what is coming regarding district elections. It gives a brief overview of why this process has started, and then the 3 ways in which residents can submit comments. It's either by mail or email to the city clerk's office. We've also listed the various upcoming meetings, which includes the next one would be January 17th. We're proposing a special city council meeting on January 24th. And then the final and 5th public hearing would be February 7th. We've also created some information on the city website with a blank map, so residents either draw their own or use the form that is provided on the city website, which is this here. So again, you just provide your name, the rest of the information is optional. And whether residents want to draw 1 district, 2 districts, or all 5 districts, whatever information they want to provide based on their communities, their neighborhoods, communities of interest, they can draw those lines. This is a basic map. It provides some detail, but it would give the demographer some information to then provide a draft map. So I quickly just wanted to show on our website, this information is located in different areas, but primarily right on the homepage is the flyer that I showed previously. It is also located under the homepage under government. The very first drop-down menu is district-based election information, which then takes you to another series of drop-down options there, which provides a little bit more information on the background of the process, the California Voting Rights Act. It provides a little bit more information on the public hearing dates. And under each state, I have information on the agenda. We have links for the city council agendas, minutes, videos are upcoming as well. Any information that the demographer presentations would have presented is also there. We have links to the demand letter received from Champlain Hughes. So all of that information is provided there as well. The next item there is this drawing district boundaries, is that map I showed you. And then one additional way to provide input, if you don't want to email the city clerk, you can just simply go to the website and there's an input form. You just put your name, your comment, submit it, and it comes directly to my desk, and I share that information with the city council. Again, this information is also available under the city clerk's page. But if you have any questions or concerns or need assistance in navigating through all of this, my office is available for any questions and answers. And I'm available for any questions by the council. Any clarification?
Council, have any questions of staff? Greg? No. Kevin? Robin?
No, thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, this is also available on social media. We've placed it in just about every location we can. So.
And Berwin, do you have any questions of staff?
No.
Okay. This is a public hearing, and before I open the public hearing, and I don't see her in the audience, very good letter and this, and each one of the council members received a packet of emails or comments and a map, correct? We like to make sure those go on to into the public record regarding this item. Correct?
Yes, Mayor, I will include that in the minutes, okay. So it's part of the official record.
Okay, thank you. Going to open the public hearing. We have cards in the matter. Sure.
Yes, Mayor, I do.
Public hearing is open.
Let's see, I believe the first one is Scott DeRosa.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Okay, so with regards to districting, I know that you've gotten some feedback or some, have done some investigations to determine whether or not there are pockets of Hispanic ethnicity or other ethnic groups within Norco that would support that demand letter. And your feedback that you've received says otherwise. As a realtor in this area, I've had the opportunity to go and travel throughout the city in different sectors, and I would concur with that Norco is very mixed. There is not one pocket of anything in any particular area of the city, which then really does not apply to what that city, what that letter is demanding from the attorney. I'm aware that, like, for example, Pomona went through the same thing a few years ago, and the city was against it, the school district was against it, even the teachers union. But in their particular demographics, they definitely had pockets of Hispanic and other ethnicities throughout the city, so it would have been a bad choice for them to divide it because they would not have won in that particular case. At this time, all of you as council members represent the city as a whole in its best interests. I would be fearful that if we went to districting, that as there's a representative for each district, that any voting or anything going on would be more biased to that particular district than for the city as a whole. And for an example, there could be an area of Norco that is not as fond of horses as other areas. And therefore, pressure from the base of that community with that particular council member could try to change our way of living our lifestyle there to where it could be, for example, in Norco Hills, where you have your dedicated area for animals. They could try to get that voted away so that it's not there anymore. So they can do other buildings or whatever else they do. Anyways, in conclusion, I really, based on the demographics of Norco, and knowing that that letter does not, or our city does not really match what that letter is demanding, but I would want to see you fight against it and not go to districting. I think you have a fair chance of winning this one just because we don't fit what that letter's concerned about. That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Sorry for the vote.
Larry Echo?
Well, not such a happy note here, but behind me I could still sell bricks. Mayor, City Council, I just want to make it clear before I start that I'm 100% against districting. I have other words for it that I'll say for other meetings. It stinks. But I do have a question. If it were to happen, let's say that we had 5 districts and each one of those had approximately 5,000 people in it, and one of these districts didn't have anybody to run. What would happen? There would just be no council person for that? You're leaning forward.
The majority would appoint it.
The majority of what?
Of the city council would appoint whoever would represent that district.
They would appoint?
Appoint.
They would pick somebody?
Yes.
Okay, I know this is, I'm supposed to be general. If they were to pick somebody, what if somebody that they picked was not acceptable to whoever accepts the person? What if they weren't the right skin color or the right last name?
I don't know about the skin color or last name, but if there's somebody that is that interested, they should have run.
So they could just say, you're a city councilman. What if that person says, I don't want to be a city councilman?
But no, you can't. No. Yes, it requires somebody to voluntarily do it. I mean, you can't say, I'm going to go through the phone book.
Okay, so out of 5,000 people, there could be a possibility where nobody says, nah, I don't want to do it.
Or at least they don't want to run.
Exactly.
But that, I mean, that happens not in the district, particularly. It happens in councils and boards of directors all the time.
So would you just have 4 council
and so
people?
The city clerk would send out a notice asking for people of interest to submit applications, and based on those applications, the city council will make an appointment.
Well, I'm sorry, it just seems silly to me, but that doesn't give a fair representation, which was I thought was the purpose of the mess, to give them a fair representation. How would that give them a fair representation if somebody was appointed? I mean, they would be elected by 5 people.
Yes, 4.
Or 4.
Yep.
That's true.
Okay. All right. Fabric.
Thank you.
Bonnie Slater.
Tough decision for you guys. And I, like everybody else, don't like this because I feel that other people don't respect our lifestyle. However, given that you're trying to make a plan on this, what I would like to see you do is consider drawing the boundaries like east to west lines, say like take 6th Street all the way across, so that a council member would have part of both sides of the freeway. So you might think of all of 6th Street north, the river might be one district, then maybe, I don't know, because it has to be a certain number of people, maybe like 6th Street to 4th Street and so on down. This way you would have 2 council members representing 6th Street, and every council member would have a part of Hamner, your big generating areas, and every council member would have part of their district being on each side of the freeway, and include some of the bluffs, some of Old Town, and some of the hills. And so you would have more homogeneous areas for your districts. So I would like to, I don't know how to draw lines on things exactly, but the one choice they are giving us is the opportunity to draw our own districts, which is amazing since nobody seems to let us do anything else. And so I think if we can make them to our advantage in having every council member represent a wide variety of parts of the city, it might be helpful. Thank you.
That's a good, yeah.
Thank you. Jim Fuller.
That's an excellent suggestion.
Well, I'm against districting, and I want to keep my animal lifestyle here in Norco. And I like the ability to be able to elect council members, what side of the city they live on, over their ideas and plans for the city. I lived here before the freeway went through, and I do live on the far side over by Norco Village, and we thought that that was going to be a determination of separating the city with a freeway. I don't think that it did. We have a good connection with both sides, and I just want to hopefully keep that, and right now I'm against districting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Water Street.
Take that card out or what?
Hi, Pat.
Hello again. Well, it's kind of eerie when the brick man and I had the same exact question. I was wondering, you know, if the city is blocked into, let's say, 5 equal geographic areas and no candidate steps forward, how do you handle that? And to hear our counsel say that, or our attorney say that someone would be picked at large if they put in any viable interest. If they had viable interest, they should have run. And when I think of all the paperwork and the reading and the studying that is required as a council person, you have to be totally dedicated to do that. And if I just can't imagine anyone, you know, at large being picked out and feel that they really represent the area. I think it's a direct attack on our lifestyle for sure, by a very small group in town, and so I'm hoping we do somehow fight this in some way. Last time we were able to speak to you, tongue-in-cheek, I said I want a Sicilian district, and Larry Cusimano and I still want our Sicilian district. We only live two miles apart, 2 or 3 miles as the crow flies, so we've got our district set, so I'm going to be walking for that one. But whatever we can do to stop.
Are you both going to run though, then
Larry did. Larry was on.
And he's smart enough not to do it twice.
Exactly. But it is a direct attack on the lifestyle. I've lived here 40 years. I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of building, a lot of open space is gone, but we still have that lifestyle that we love, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it go. So let's do what we can do. And I just, again, I'll stand up here every time and say I'm against the districts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Corinne Holder.
I tried, yes you did.
All right, well, the letter I sent you was sort of my business side. This is my more personal side. Added a little business in there along with it. Good evening, guys. At the last city council meeting, the last couple, I came in with sort of the idea I don't like districting for certain reasons. Thought maybe the demographer would change my mind, maybe they'd have some new information, something I didn't know about. But at the last council meeting, the diagrams of how the cities are typically divided and the discussion on traditional criteria, yeah, I left and thought about it for a couple of days, and now I really, really don't like the idea of districting. You know, gotta be honest. Some of our options for traditional criteria included school attendance areas, parks and landmarks, natural divides, common issues, and neighborhood activities and election concerns. We have one true high school, we have an extra at the college, one middle school. How do you divide that up? Where's my representation? We have two main parks, one for events and horses, our main event center, and one for all the other sports, unless you play basketball. We have basic 3 landmarks. None of them have a voting population. I kind of count the Norconian, Beacon Hill, and Pumpkin Rock. How do we divide these into equitable portions? How do you split 2 schools and 2 parks into multiple districts? I might not live in the district where my children attend school and where they play sports and ride their horses. Who represents my best interests when I would have to say, who are my representatives? Where are they? I live over here and everything else is done in all of these other areas, and I don't get to talk to those other district people. I might not know who they are, and I definitely didn't get to vote for them. All of these resources that we use are used by everyone in the city. So no matter where you live, as a voter and a resident, I should have some say in who represents these places. And I guarantee you that I am not the only parent around here, that if I added up all the hours I spent at the parks or the event center, I spend more of my time outside of my own home and outside of what would become my district than I do in my own home. So I think I have a right to be able to speak to those representatives and vote for them. The other thing that we have kind of noticed, common issues, neighborhood activities. Okay, as I see it, residents have a citywide concern fixing roads, infrastructure, maintaining our parks, and keeping our large lots. Our neighborhood activities, our small block parties, they're tied to our children's school and sports activities, church functions, or events at our main event centers. We cannot divide those areas. We can't. And we are equally representative in all of them, being able to elect all 5 council members. When we want to have influence on every single council person, we want our voice to be heard every single time we speak to you. So having these events all over town, it's important. Our lives cannot be divided in that way. So I personally think that we need to fight this issue. I think we can do it. So I would appreciate your time in trying to figure that out while we work through the part we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne.
Harvey Sullivan.
Hi, Harvey.
How you doing? Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Good to see you out there.
Congratulations to all of you. You know, it's a thankless job you're doing, and we appreciate it anyway, but sometimes you feel it's thankless. And on this particular issue, I wasn't going to speak on it, but I know some of you said here recently that you'd like input from how the residents feel, because I believe you can turn this down. You don't have to go with it. And, you know, one of the things that over the years that I served on the council, when I went to council functions and state functions and federal functions, one of the things that you always heard over the United States that a a lot of cities were still trying to identify themselves. And one of the things that I always heard, that Norco sure to hell knows what they want to be. They want to be Horsetown, USA, a small plot, agricultural, animal keeping community. And that's what we want to be, and dividing it up into districts is one good way to destroy it. And I don't know for sure, I'm going to ask you, maybe John knows, if it was divided up, it'd have to be equally by the numbers and not by the square miles, right? Or
Population.
it has to be by the population. And with the pockets we have here in the Norco Hills and over here in the clubs, there's no way you're going to be able to divide it up. One area is going to be 5 miles, the other is going to be a mile square and all of that. So I think it's worth fighting, and I would commend you to do that and vote not to go ahead with this districting, and let's fight it in court. Has any other cities had this problem and won?
No.
None of them's won. So all of them so far. And how many years do we have to do this? Was there a mandate from the state? Or did we just get some letter from a lawyer?
We got a demand letter from a law firm based upon what the California's Voting Rights Act said. And so how long do we have to do it? We don't, one, you don't ever have to do it. Two, but assuming you do, that there are kind of a couple thresholds that if we do it and make a decision to go forward within 90 days from the date that we begin this hearing process, then there's no potential for significant attorney's fees to Mr. Shankman. Other than that, after the 90-day period runs, it's whenever it happens. If Mr. Shankman sues us, then we're in court for a while.
It's up to you five, but I would say I would fight it in court before I would divide this city up and destroy our. I think that would be one of the big steps going toward destroying our animal keeping and property rights here in this city. Like Corinne said, there's no way that you can get representation over the whole city. Sometimes we feel like we don't have representation now, but we have 5 of you. At least we can talk to all 5 of you. And then you're down to where you can only talk to one if we don't get something. Anyway, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you, Harvey.
Sarah Williams.
Hello, Sigrid.
Hello, how are you? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Sigrid Williams. I'm a professor and lecturer at Cal State Fullerton in Politics, Administration, and Justice, and I have just been recently hired at Norco College in their Administration and Justice program. Districting sounds really good at times. Geographically, you get better representation. Individuals are more attuned to the problems within their districts. There's participation that goes along. However, Shankman and Hughes, a husband and wife team out of Malibu, who owns a law firm that wants to sue my little cities and insist that we redistrict for our elections, is absolutely wrong. And for little cities to run from a law firm of a husband and wife is wrong as well. And I implore you to fight. Huntington Beach right now and several other Orange County cities are fighting this law firm because they are in Malibu. They are not here. They don't understand our lifestyle. But let's look at what at-large elections give us. They give us more impartial representation. They give us a concern of the problems of our city as a whole, not individual areas. They have numbers of available candidates that tend to be greater when we're voting at large. And in a small city of 26,000 that we are right now, with 5,500 of them under 18 so they can't even vote, we had 33% of those 19,000 that voted, which means we don't have any denial of access, which Shankman and Hughes is saying is part of the problem for their lawsuits. So I stand here opposing that you district our city. You allow these at-large elections and you fight them with everything you have on behalf of the city.
Mayor, that's all the cards I have on this item. I give you my card with all my flyers.
Jody Weber.
Thank So waiting patiently.
Hi, Jody. Nice map, by the way.
Thank you very much. Mayor, Council, Merry Christmas. First of all, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you actually created maps, blank maps that you put up on the website so that citizens could actually draw on them. So I do encourage, Bonnie had mentioned she's not good at it, but it's actually pretty fun. The map itself doesn't give population, so obviously I put the caveat on that, and I actually did this in just an hour or so before City Council. I do appreciate that the website's been updated. I appreciate the fact that you've uploaded all the documents. I do have a few suggestions as to your flyers. As you're aware, I serve on the Citizens Redistricting Commission. I've done and participated and made plenty of recommendations regarding outreach throughout the entire state of California regarding this particular issue. What is of utmost importance is education to the community, primarily as to where the input needs to be, which is as to communities of interest. Your flyer in the top of the map actually says, City of Norco, districting, draw your neighborhood. It's not just your neighborhood. I would suggest if this is just an e-flyer that you remove the cell phone out, or that has the calculator, or I mean the calendar on there, and actually identify what constitutes community of interest. You can actually use the definition that Mr. Johnson has provided, but also in this particular city provide some examples as to what constitutes communities of interest. For instance, landscape maintenance districts are a community of interest. Ingalls Park is a community of interest. Everything that Corinne had mentioned are communities of interest in the city of Norco. Hamner Corridor is a community of interest. 6th Street, as Ms. Slater had mentioned, is also a community of interest. Provide those as examples. It's not just your neighborhood, because you have to draw the district larger, because it's not just about a neighborhood. So I'd appreciate you changing that on your map flyer. It's a little misleading because you actually can't just draw borders of neighborhoods, because if I thought of neighborhood, I'd just draw my street, you know, that's my neighborhood. So just expand that so it's not misleading, suggesting you have to draw districts of 4,000 population. Secondly, there is no evidence of racial polarized voting in the city of Norco. They can't find it. I've talked to Mr. Johnson. He's not going to do a racial polarized study. He could do it. The demographics don't pan out. You actually cannot draw a district in the city of Norco that would be a majority-minority district, not suggesting that it's required. It's not required, but you can't even draw an influence district. You have a CVAP, which is a citizen voting age population of 26%, or 22%, excuse me, take out the prison, it's down to 21. You only have, based on Mr. Johnson's statistics from 2014, 13% Latino voter participation. If you look at his map, you can't draw a minority district or even pack them if it's not going to be contrary to the Federal Voting Rights Act or the the California Voting Rights Act. To put them in a district in which they would have a majority, that will only be potentially 21%, if you'll indulge me momentarily. You're not going to be able to create, with the population that we have here, influence district either, even if you put them all in one district. And we're only talking about Latinos. That's the only minority group that they've actually focused on. We don't have sufficient population based on Mr. Johnson's statistics to even consider an Asian population. So we're not going to be able to create that, even if you packed them in a district. So let's take a look at my map real quick. Number one, I'm looking at communities of interest. Again, I just did this. Looking at the hills, I drew as just number one. Community of interest, I identified as the hills, the landscape maintenance districts, Ingalls, and all of the surrounding neighborhoods up to east side, or hillside, primarily because of the fact that they've got impact with Ingalls and the golf course. District 2 has communities of interest primarily with traffic issues that come in from the city of Riverside. District 3 I was looking at for high school, traffic, and Hamner. So you've got a split on the Latino districts identified by Johnson, but whatever. District 4 I was looking at is just, again, you've got some split on Latinos, you've got egg ranch issues, you've got Hidden Valley with traffic on that side in 5, you've got the Navy, you've got Lake Norconian, you've got an LMD there, and you have prison. Of course, it still has to be worked out from population, but I do encourage everybody to take a look at drawing this type of thing, and the population will work out. So thank you very much. And again, I'm against the entire districting process. So I'll incorporate everything I've said. One other point, are the minutes being provided to Mr. Johnson based on all the input from the community?
Yes.
Thank you, Jody.
No more cards on this item.
Close the public on that one. Getting back to council. Anything, Berwin, do you have anything?
Well, I appreciate all the people that spoke and all the emails we got, and the few that drew maps. It's kind of interesting because everybody will draw a different map, but that's life. You know, everybody has a different idea. But like I said from the onset, they haven't took on anybody like Norco, so I'll fight. I don't care. You know, we've fought too hard for this lifestyle. I've lived here for 30 years. It's always a fight. There's some people, somebody's always want to do something different, but we've fought and we've had some pretty bloody battles and we've won, and I'm not ready to lay down. So thank you.
Kind of follow up with what Berwin said. Thank you everybody for your input, and I would encourage you with the item that Cheryl showed everybody to please encourage your neighbors and the people that are in your communities of influence. Some of you have kids in baseball and soccer, and maybe they don't know about this. Please talk to those people that are in those communities of influence and encourage them to go on the website and participate in this process. Even if they don't have time to come here, they can send an email, they can submit a map. So please encourage involvement from the folks that you interact with on a daily basis to have some influence over this process.
Thank you.
Well, I'm also hoping on the Norco luck. We've been very lucky that this community has survived. And a lot of hard work. A couple of things that I think are of interest. I mean, Corinne, you were spot on where I'm coming from in terms of all the diversity of groups that we have. Shankman and Hughes, they're just making money. That's all they're doing. We understand that. Some of the people raised the issues of what happens if there's no council person. Well, we've had that twice. We had the Norco luck. First time when Hal Clark died, came down to me and another person. And actually,
was that good luck?
Well, what happened is I thought the other guy was the better person because we were going through a very bad downturn economically, and he'd been on council for 12 years prior to that. The second time that happened was we lost Malcolm Miller, and we chose, believe it or not, this guy next to me, who actually totally understood the public safety issues that we were facing. Riverside, they just picked somebody to take John's spot right next to Norco, and they picked somebody who wants to build houses on the very spot that we fought so hard to stop. What tends to happen is they pick the person they need to do what they need to do. Most recently, we had an example of what it's like to have at-large voting. There were 3 of us in the hills that were trying to solve a problem for one of the LMDs. As we speak, all of us are funding that LMD. We are making sure we don't shut the water off. When all of a sudden, for example, if I look at Jody's map here, you could have a situation where you would have 1 representative for 5, maybe 5 LMDs. That's not what she has here. You'd have 1 vote. Now, the first generation, I'm very confident the 5 people sitting here care just as much about the bluffs as they care about the hills, and we've proven it. Every one of us have proven it. But do you think the next generation of council person is going to be going up in the hills saying, you know what, we're going to help you with this LMD? They're going to say, you signed a contract, we're really sorry, and you have 1 representative. You better have a good one. As opposed to if we do this cutting it up. Harvey, I am in total agreement with you, and it was actually really nice to see you standing up there. Thank you for coming. That was really nice to see you. We go way back. We've had our differences, but we've had a lot of good times together, and it was really nice to see you there. One of the things that we do have to face a reality is if we take these people on, you don't recover costs, correct?
Correct.
And it's triple damages if you lose, correct? Is that how it works?
It's not quite that simple, but yes, it's more than just a regular attorney's.
I mean, and understand, Shankman and Hughes simply work for the legislature. The legislature could fix this at any time, and they don't. And so, I'm right there with Robin and Berwin. We have a lot to lose. We're the last city in the state of California. By law, you have to build on a half acre or more. And I will do whatever I can to fight this, and I'm very happy to hear that you've all stood up and